as they come in, we'll launch the webinar, Video Encoding in the Cloud, a key strategy to consider for 2011, with a couple polls. And we'd like to do this so that we can understand who's attending the webinar today. We can tailor our content a little bit depending on what your background is. And so with that, let's launch our first poll. You'll see this coming up on your screens shortly. The first question is, are you using the cloud today? So when we ask that question, we mean, are you using the cloud today in terms of infrastructure as a service? That would be something like an Amazon EC2 or a Rackspace. That's what we're trying to find out on this question. So please select one of these answers. We'll give you a couple minutes to do that. Okay, it looks like we just got a really good response quickly there. So it looks like a good majority of you haven't yet started working on the cloud. 55% haven't, so that's great. We'll be able to tell you more about what the cloud offers and the different benefits there. And then we've got also a good percentage here who've already started to do some stuff on the cloud and some with a very serious project. Great. Good mix of people. Now we'll launch our second poll. And this should be coming up on your screen. The question is, why are you considering a cloud-based video encoding solution? You can choose all that apply here, but are you looking to reduce costs, or are you trying to increase your IT agility, meaning just deal with unpredictable, spiky loads faster and easier? Or are you trying to use it to get to market faster, or to try new things in terms of product development? Or do you just need additional computing resources? So go ahead and check all that apply there. We'll give you a couple seconds to respond. Okay, right across the board. Everyone's looking for everything, it looks like, which is good, because I think you'll like the content of this webinar. We'll be addressing how you can actually tackle all these different areas by incorporating a cloud strategy into your video encoding. Great, thank you. So now we'll begin the webinar. I want to introduce our panel of speakers today. So on the line we've got Mike Flathers from Sorenson Media. He's their CTO. And then we've also got Kirk Punches, who's with Sorenson Media, and he's the Vice President of Business Development. From the RightScale side, we've got Yuri Budnik, who's a Director of the ISV Partner Program. And then Bhavik Vyas, Director of Technology Sales and Partnerships at Aspera. And I think I pronounced his last name wrong. It's Vyas. Sorry, Bhavik. And then on the Q&A line, we've got a group of folks who can help answer questions during the course of the webinar. We have Brian McGinnis and Daniel Howard, who are account managers at RightScale, and then Kobe Rich, who's a marketing manager with Sorenson Media. And the way that we manage the webinars is we really encourage you to put in questions during the course of the webinar into the GoToWebinar panel that you'll see on the right side of your screen. And just as you have questions come to mind, go ahead and ask them, and we'll either answer them directly right there in real time, or what we might do is take that question and use it for the live Q&A at the end. But regardless, your question will be answered during the course of the webinar or at the end of the webinar. So we really like to see those questions and get them going to us, and we'll answer them. So on to the next slide. We'll be covering these agenda points today. We'll basically be looking at the trends in video encoding and what's happening in terms of the context of video encoding today. And then we'll go into a strategy discussion on when you should be using a public cloud or on-premise encoding, or maybe a hybrid of both is another strategy to consider. And then we'll move from there into looking at how cloud-based encoding servers can scale and the capabilities associated with that. And then Mike Flathers will take us through a live demo, and then we'll take your questions at the end with summary and a live Q&A. And so with that, I'd like to introduce Kirk Punches, and he's going to start the webinar with the first agenda topic. So Kirk, take it from here.
Great. Thanks, Elise, and thanks again to everyone who's able to join us today. And so, why is video encoding in the cloud a key strategy for 2011? Why did we come up with that title? And, it's worth taking a minute to think about the definition of strategy. Strategy is a plan, and it's a method. It's a series of decisions that help you get to a given result. As that relates to encoding, there's definitely a lot to consider, and so it's worth just thinking about some of the trending stories. High level, it's really all about more devices, more renditions, more delivery options. And, really as a quick example, if anyone was at the Consumer Electronics Show a couple of weeks ago, we were following the stories, there was something like 75 new tablets introduced, and of course that's on top of all the existing tablets and mobile devices already in the marketplace that support video playback. And if you follow video news, for example, you might have seen Will Richmond. He had a nice CES post last week, and again, he was reiterating that mobility is really video's next frontier, and it's all about this explosion of video-friendly smartphones and tablets. And one of the things that he pointed out was an IDC prediction. It was something like 330 million smartphones and 42 million tablets will be sold in 2011 alone. So obviously, a lot of devices, which means plenty of renditions to support video playback. One of the things that we saw at CES was just a number of manufacturers that were demonstrating their devices that will allow consumers to share video and share that video content across phones, television, tablets. And so transferring that video content from the small mobile device, the tablet, to the TV, this requires some decisions and forethought around how you're going to get high-quality video playback, which means lots and lots of encoding. One other thing, if you attended the recent HTML5 webinar or you read Troy Dreyer's post on streamingmedia.com, you saw how Apple's backing H.264 and Google's backing WebM in its Chrome browser, and of course they're going to drop H.264 support. So even within HTML5, it's fragmented, and it means you can't just choose one format. You've got to stream two formats, and that just goes back to all the decisions that go into how you're going to support different environments, different devices, and all the coding decisions that go into that. And then finally, look no further than Netflix. I'm sure we all use Netflix, familiar with Netflix as a company, but if you want to get a real sense of the growing complexities of encoding, I saw something that they're creating more than 100 different renditions for each video. Again, that's over 100. And I'm confident that number of renditions is just going to continue to grow as more and more devices hit the marketplace. So as it relates to strategy and the decisions that go into encoding, it's all about how you're going to support the format, all the decisions that go into the encoding. And quite frankly, encoding certainly is accelerating. It's not declining. So next slide, please. And, the reality is video encoding is complex, and it's a hard thing to do right. And fundamental to the encoding value proposition is how are you going to deliver the highest quality and the smallest relative bit rate. Why? Well, because bandwidth and storage, are not unlimited. And think about this for a moment. Again, when it relates to high-quality video at the smallest bit rate, think about how much time, money, and resources are spent within your organization if you're supporting video. What do you spend on cameras and lighting equipment and the editing process? All of that time, energy, and money can be ruined by a poor user experience because the format doesn't work on a given device, the frame size might be wrong, there could be buffering. The point here is consumers want video playback seamlessly. They want it to look great regardless of where they are and what they're using to look at the video. And certainly on the Sorenson Media side, what we've learned from customers is that they demand the most bang for the bit. And so as you start thinking about the decisions that go into encoding and to support all these different devices, that's why we support so many different presets, those presets being the encoding recipes. And there are a lot of variables that go into the equation here. And just to call out some of the sample encoding parameters, think about what codec you're using, what's your encoding profile, what method are you doing, single pass, two pass, multi-pass, are you doing variable bit rate, constant bit rate, frame rates, data rates, frame sizes, aspect ratios, pixel aspect ratios, keyframe intervals, filters, on and on and on. This goes back into how, what sort of decisions you're making around delivering, the highest quality in the smallest relative bit rate. And let's not forget the user experience matters here. When you look at all of these different devices and how you're going to share that content and that experience across all these different devices, obviously delivering content to a 50-inch television is completely different than to the iPhone and the smaller screen. And then when you start considering things about connectivity, is the user on Wi-Fi? Are they on a 3G, 4G? That's where all of these different renditions come into play, and people are trying to solve this problem via adaptive bit rate, because the last thing you want is buffering. The last thing you want is just that frame size to not match the device that you're delivering the content to. It's just a horrible user experience, and at the end of the day, if that's what it's going to result in, then why bother? You just wasted a lot of time and energy in the encoding process. Next slide, please. So, really from our perspective, what does all of this mean? Well, it means, again, that video encoding is complex, and it's a hard thing to do right. And it also means with this growing list of devices and different renditions, different frame sizes, et cetera, that you as a company, you've got to encode content, all those various formats, bit rates, et cetera, to make it look good. And how it relates to encoding in the cloud and what we're here to talk about today is that, what the cloud can provide in terms of encoding is just a scalable, on-demand environment that can keep up with the growing list of devices and provide, high-quality flexibility and certainly some cost savings relative to trying to do this solely on-premise. But let's talk a little bit more about the video problem in the cloud and just the cloud in general. And so what I'd like to do is turn the time over now to Yuri Budnick of RightScale to provide a little bit more insight here. Yuri?
Thank you. So you just heard Kirk, among the topics that he covered, talk about the increase, perhaps dramatic increase of needs for encoding due to different formats and different avenues for distribution. I want to cover some information related to this that I can use this diagram to explain. I know at first glance it looks like it's rather complicated with a lot of things going on. It actually holds a simple message that will become evident in a moment. Notice that we have time and cost as the X and Y axis here, and this really represents the capacity needs for video encoding. I would like to ask you to first pay attention to the gray dotted line that's in an angle going from left to right in the middle of the screen there. That really represents the predicted demand for encoding. And as we've heard, I think everybody in this webinar will probably agree, it's only going to go up over time. The only question is, how steep would the slope of that line be? If you would look now at the blue line, that really represents your capacity-giving hardware you might have in your own office, in your data center. And notice that has a stair-step shape because the way you buy equipment is in big lumps or in tranches, and you just want to get above, or you want to stay above your predicted demand that you might have. However, the actual demand is almost impossible to predict. As Kirk pointed out, there was an announcement, I believe it was 2-3 weeks ago, where Google said that for Chrome they were no longer going to support H.264 and only WebM. So I imagine there's lots and lots of organizations out there with big libraries that are now looking at how do we transcode what we have today into formats that are supported now for WebM, for example. Or it could be just a company that signs a really big unexpected sale or any distribution deal, and they now need their video library in a different format or different multiple formats and bit rates and aspect ratios, as Kirk was explaining. So that's what you see with the red line here. And notice there's a curve, and it intersects the gray line, the predicted demand, and it also intersects the blue line, what you have in place with traditional hardware. So what most companies do, they do what you see there with the green dotted line. They way over provision capacity. They have a lot of servers available and in place, mostly sitting idle, just in case they need them. It's a form of insurance, really. And economists call this an opportunity cost to denote what else you could have done with the budget you're assigning to an asset that's sitting there unutilized. Maybe you could have put that into something that makes you more competitive with other companies in your space, as opposed to not being used at all. And companies do this to avoid the situation you see there in the red area on the top middle there, the red triangle. You don't want to get caught in a situation where you have so much demand on your video encoding systems that you fall way, way, way behind. And that could be breaking internal SLAs or not being able to meet partnership commitments or lots of other problems. So the idea with cloud computing is that you have access to, from your perspective, virtually unlimited compute resources, and that you can provision them on demand. So what you will in fact see today in this webinar with Mike Flathers, as TPO of Sorenson, is demonstrating for you, is this ability to actually auto-provision servers for video encoding on demand, as you need to, depending on business rules that you can set, how many jobs are waiting in a queue to be encoded perhaps, or the time of day, or some other parameters. And notice that's what you see here with the yellow line, the demand the capacity needs more closely following the demand. And the idea, by the way, is not that you can just add more and more servers, it's also that you can release resources when you're not using them. And when you think of cloud computing, and I'm really referring to infrastructure as a service, you're talking of a business model where you pay for servers by the hour as you use them. So the concept of releasing them and not having to pay for them when you're not using them becomes a lot more capital efficient. Now, I know some of this sounds really innovative and perhaps like it might be brand new, but I want to tell you that we've actually been working at this for quite a few years, and there's lots of companies across the spectrum of industries that have been using this very successfully already. So just to quote some examples from existing customers, anything from AstraZeneca that is using the cloud and RightScale today to perform computations to simulate chemical reactions for organic chemistry molecules in the cloud, so they don't have to actually mix chemicals, to companies like Zynga that provides Facebook games like Farmville and Cafe World and Mafia Worlds that have something like 70 million people playing their games every day. And what I want to say is that even though it might seem like it's brand new technology, it's actually been put into practice and is being used by companies that are fairly innovative for quite a while, and what's happening is only now becoming more widely known. Now, I've said all this without really saying who we are. RightScale is software to manage clouds. Our customers use RightScale to more easily and more quickly deploy their environments in the cloud, and I'm referring to companies like Amazon's EC2, the Elastic Compute Cloud, and the RightScale Cloud. It's faster to deploy the servers when you manage them with RightScale, and also we make it dramatically less time-consuming to manage those environments. And we've been around really from about as long as this field has been developing. And just to give you a sense of the size and scope, we're about to crack 2 million servers launched. So this is actually running in a pretty large scale. In fact, we keep a live counter in our homepage that if you log in every day like I do, you'll see it's accelerating, in fact. And our customers really span the whole spectrum of industries, from entertainment to pharmaceutical to dot-com startups to finance to manufacturing. Anybody that can use a server to manage their business, it's usually easier to manage them using our software. And you will actually see that in practice as you see the demo of this solution that we created together with Aspera and Sorenson to make it a lot easier to build an encoding environment in the cloud. And with that, I would like to pass the presentation back to Kirk so he can tell you a little bit about Sorenson Media.
Thanks, Yuri. So for those that aren't familiar with Sorenson Media, we've been innovators in video encoding and video management, video delivery since 1995. And so we've got a long history, and we really do believe that we've been a part of the mainstreaming of internet video really since day one. So we have been a part of everything from video playback in Apple QuickTime to our Spark codec, which we licensed to Adobe for flash playback. And then we've also been a part of all the content up until a few years ago, all the encoding of YouTube video content. So we've got a portfolio of best-in-class differentiated video solutions and really global partners worldwide. So everything from our award-winning professional desktop encoding application, Squeeze, to now Sorenson 360, which is our online video platform, the Squeeze Managed Server, and now the Squeeze Solutions Pack. We provide the enterprise components that you can plug into your workflow to solve all the hard work and complexities around video encoding. And with that, I'd like to go ahead and introduce Bob Vyas of Aspera to tell you a little bit more about his company.
Thanks, Cook. So just to quickly introduce everyone to Aspera, we're a software company that is partnered here with RightScale and Sorenson to really facilitate on-demand video encoding in the cloud. What we specifically solve is the issue with wide area networks and the fundamental problem of getting large content to and from the cloud-based service. And so Aspera is, we're about 7 years old. We have specific protocols that solve the wide area network problem, and we replace technologies like FTP or HTTP, rsync, SCP for secure delivery of content over wide area networks. And we're a seamless piece of this technology in the fact that we'll just simply allow the cloud computing platform on top of which Sorenson is going to run and RightScale is going to manage will almost be like it's part of your LAN infrastructure. So we'll eliminate any issue you have with the wide area network with respect to moving data in and out of that service. And that ultimately translates to high productivity and high efficiency that corresponds directly to what you're trying to achieve with respect to your encoding. So time to market, time to encode, time to doing the next task that you need to do with respect to your encoding job. So Aspera has over 1,100 customers today. We've deployed several thousand server licenses, and we are today a mission-critical component of a lot of global business data workflows. So some of our customers are listed on this slide, and we have a whole list of other customers that we don't typically talk about, but top Hollywood studios, global broadcasters, all using Aspera to move large data. So we're very pleased with this development in the cloud, and we really hope that we eliminate the WAN from being a bottleneck to actually achieving this as part of your business workflow. So with that, Kirk, I'll hand back to you.
Excellent, thanks. So to get back to really what we're here to talk about today, and that's the strategy discussion. One of the questions that we get often is, what is the best type of implementation? How do we deploy encoding resources to keep up with all the growing list of mobile devices, tablets, et cetera? And the real answer here is there isn't one type of implementation. So what we see today and really what we're involved with in some of our enterprise opportunities really shapes up into the following three types of implementations. You've got, first of all, cloud-only encoding. And this is probably one that most people are familiar with if they're looking to do some testing, they need excess capacity, failover. And of course, that's taking advantage of the public cloud providers such as Amazon Web Services. It could also mean others such as a Rackspace or a GoGrid. But that's spinning up a dedicated encoding server or a series of encoding servers in the cloud only, so that as you need to support your encoding workflow, you bring those machines up, pay only for the compute time, then bring them back down. One of the other types of implementations that we're seeing is really what we define as hybrid encoding, and that's a combination of on-premise encoders and cloud encoding. Obviously, you want to take advantage of existing hardware and software that you have on-premise, and then seamlessly transition your encoding jobs to the cloud on demand as you need to. Again, examples of that can be things such as special projects, excess capacity, or even failover. And then finally, we're seeing more and more of this hybrid cloud implementation, which is really taking advantage of both private and public cloud. And so if you're using solutions such as a cloud.com or a Eucalyptus, and you want to have your virtual private cloud, but also, again, take advantage of the public cloud for excess capacity, failover, et cetera, you want an implementation where you can seamlessly handle the encoding jobs from one environment to the next. So there really isn't one way to do this. Again, I just want to stress that there are advantages to each type. It's really dependent upon your existing infrastructure and what sort of encoding challenges you're being faced with today. And then really just talking about the advantages overall of cloud encoding, and quite frankly, these are the advantages of the cloud in general. It's the reduced CapEx and OpEx. Obviously being able to partially or completely eliminate that physical hardware and replace it with the on-demand cloud infrastructure is one of the reasons that there seems to be a lot of interest in encoding in the cloud. Encoding tends to be spiky, and so you've got these alternating periods of high volume, low volume inactivity. So, the ability to fire up those servers, bring them back down, just use and pay only for the compute time can definitely provide a cost savings relative to, as Yuri pointed out earlier, sort of forecasting and having to buy hardware that may sit idle most of the time. And that also ties into the OpEx. If you can get rid of resources or minimize resources that are focused on configuring, deploying, and managing hardware on premise, then those resources can be focused on other mission-critical tasks, and you can completely offload the encoding to the cloud, and again, just bring it up on demand when you need it. Certainly, the scalability and elasticity, I think, is another reason that we see a lot of organizations really evaluating encoding in the cloud. It's that ability that on demand you can bring up a bank of servers so that, as this most recent example that we've talked about, if you've got all this legacy content, suddenly you can't view it within Chrome, and you need to transcode it to WebM, you may not have capacity on premise to support that. So being able to fire up a bank of servers to transcode all of those files and then bring those servers back down becomes very important. Other things are really performance, flexibility. Think about this. You're really future-proofing. Again, you see this growing list of new devices hitting the marketplace. I have no doubt there will be some new format, some new standard that everyone needs to follow. And the ability to have a solution in the cloud that supports a new format, a new device on demand, bring those servers up to transform the content. Really, there's a lot of advantages there in terms of just future-proofing, so you're not having to focus on purchasing hardware or thinking about solving these problems, which can be very complex, quite frankly. So, again, it's all of really the benefits of the cloud as it relates to encoding, and it's really tied to the decisions that you have to make to support all those different renditions for all those different devices, to be prepared so that consumers can view content regardless of what environment, what device they're on. So next slide, please. So how does this relate to the discussion we're having here today? So let's talk through, and this is certainly our example of cloud encoding basics, the ingest to publishing. So, in terms of workflow, it's really straightforward. And, you've got your production workflow, you're creating your video files, and having a partnership with a company like Aspera really eliminates the bandwidth question. We can seamlessly get those large video files up into the cloud. You're passing the files from ingestion. Instead of going to physical on-premise servers, you're simply going to a cloud-based solution. In our case, working together with partners like RightScale, it really does make it very turnkey, and we can configure the business rules around how you bring those different types of servers online based upon peak periods, et cetera, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But it's that scalability, and it's really important to reiterate that it's not just bringing those encoding servers up, but it's also the ability to bring them back down, and that's where you can see a cost savings. You might need 10, 20, 100 servers just for a few hours to support that spiky nature of encoding. Then you can bring all of those servers back down, just pay for the compute time. In terms of the Sorenson piece and having the future-proofing, it's really about as new devices hit the marketplace. WebM was a great example. We were prepared on day one, working very closely with Google, to have all of the encoding presets to support WebM available in our encoding engine. And the fact that it's in the cloud makes it very seamless to support new encoding recipes that consist of all those variables that we talked about earlier that go into creating high-quality video. And then destinations, making it simple that once you've transcoded all this content, being able to seamlessly deliver it and be agnostic from a delivery standpoint, regardless of FTP, CDN that you may need, and delivering to all of those at the same time. So the workflows, I don't want to oversimplify it. What I'd like to do is turn it over to Mike Flowers to talk more about architecture, in this case, what we've developed in conjunction with our partners, Aspera and RightScale. So next slide, please, and Mike, I'll turn the time over to you.
Great. Thanks, Kirk. I appreciate everyone being here today. I'd just like to start on this slide with the bottom right-hand corner. Let's kind of start with getting getting something, a video to be encoded into the system. With the Solutions Pack, we've done a few things. One of which is we have reference applications that we've created for Windows, for .NET, for OS X, for Android and iPhone. And I think that we may be the only ones at this point with an application that actually has Aspera technology built into the iPhone. Don't know for sure, but we do have that built in, and so we can take advantage of everything that that Aspera provides there for ingest. Then kind of moving across to the left, you'll see we have those Aspera servers in the mix that the video in this case would come into, and then there's some shared local storage and a database that's shared amongst the squeeze servers that come up. And you see in there that we say that there can be 1 to n number of servers, and as Kurt mentioned, we can scale those servers up and down based on business rules. It might be things like queue wait time, number of jobs in the queue, and things like that. And we may talk a little bit more about those options in a few slides. But then moving from there, up to the top right, we can deliver out of the solution into basically to any URI. We have some built-in templates for things like FTP, Amazon S3, our Sorenson 360, and some of the most common CDNs. And then on the top left, just briefly mention that RightScale has this concept of deployments, which the minimum viable product for this solution is really 4 servers, and that includes a single squeeze server, an Aspera server, and a master-slave configuration for database. So those are the last 2 servers. And it's really nice because we're able to take advantage of all of the best practices and scalability expertise that RightScale has. So with that, let me mention one other thing, and that's the APIs. We have Solutions Pack APIs that allow you to basically go in and totally configure, monitor, and keep track of what's happening in your configuration, and you'll see some of that in action for the demo. So with that, why don't we move to the demo here, and if I can have control of this presentation.
And while Mike's setting that up, one of the things I just want to reiterate, I know, is focused on WebM. There's a breadth of output formats that certainly the squeeze engine's capable of supporting. So, we're very switched from that standpoint, regardless of input format or output format desired. We really do support the full range of the most commonly used formats that are out there today.
Okay. So again, we're partnered with RightScale here, and I don't want to spend too much time on this site, but this is RightScale's console, and I just want to set up the demo a little bit for you here. We actually have a configuration already deployed. When you actually choose to deploy a Squeeze Solution Pack configuration, it takes about 15 minutes or so for a Windows server to boot up, which is what we have out here. And rather than do that, I have one that's already pre-configured, and we've got one server that is actually in the mix here that I'll show you in our little console, and the other servers are kind of waiting in the wings to be needed, if you will. And so what you'll see here, we're going to, rather than wait for events to occur that would cause new servers to kick in, I've got a little Add New Server button down here, or link down here, that I'll click to simulate bringing up, or actually not simulate, it'll actually bring new servers up without having to wait that 15 minutes. So, but what's happening here is all of the configuration, the runtime configuration, is being done to bring those servers into the mix here when I bring a new server up. So I just want to walk through this interface and tell you this is kind of our default interface that we provide with Solutions Pack, and we eat our own dog food here. We wanted to make sure that we provided you with the APIs and the ability to augment this user interface, or create your own if you choose to, your own monitoring system, your own ingest, and the whole bit. So this is just kind of an example of what can be done with the APIs. Some people, it may be just fine for. Others may want to enhance it. The other thing is, I just want to talk really quickly about building a great encoding solution in the cloud. We have had Squeeze for a long time. It's very popular. Many of you know it. And we've done very well with it and been recognized for that. One of the things that we could have done is just taken Squeeze and slapped it into the cloud as if it were just a watch folder. Well, that's only solving a part of the problem. We chose to go the extra mile and make sure we build a great encoding solution. So we look at the whole workflow from start to finish, and you'll see some of that in action here. Okay, so now just going to walk through a couple of these screens really quickly to show you. We have the ability to actually upload, from the web interface, something new into the queue, into the system. You can actually monitor queues. Of course, you don't have any jobs in there right now. We also have some applications. Here's those reference applications. And we provide the source code for those applications as well within Squeeze Solution Pack. And then the last link is just some more info that you can go to get some information on our Sorenson Media and the APIs and so forth. So let's go ahead and jump back up here to this encoding farm. And I'm going to go ahead and start sending some jobs into the queue here, into the farms, and we should start seeing them coming up. And this is actually running through, doing a round trip. It's actually ingesting files, putting jobs in the queue, and actually you'll see them encoding. If we go here to monitor queue now, we should see that this server that's in the mix is processing 3 jobs. So you might ask, okay, how is a single server picking up multiple jobs? Like I mentioned, building a great cloud-based encoding solution isn't just about a serial workflow of ingest, start encoding, and then deliver. It's all about keeping that CPU busy, keeping the actual server busy. So we invested a lot of time and effort and energy into making sure that we have that balance between uploading files in the background while encoding jobs are going on, and then Squeeze Server itself actually takes a look at the hardware that it's running on, the amount of memory it has, the I/O speed, all kinds of stuff, GPU or not, and will actually take advantage of multiple cores on a machine as well. So, with some codecs we can multi-thread, others we can't, and so we really make sure that we keep that CPU busy, because that's what it's all about. So you can see this particular server is starting to take on a whole bunch of jobs here. Well, that might be great, but we really want to be able to add more servers to the mix. So I'm going to just fire up a few more servers here. So I'm going to click this link a few times. Okay, and you should start seeing some more servers come into the mix here. And we should see 4 or 5 of them start to kick in. There we go. So they're coming in here, starting to pick up again. That at runtime, these machines are being asked to come up, and they're dynamically configured to be a full participant in this encoding farm.
And this goes back to, Mike, what you were saying earlier. So if we wanted to programmatically do this, maybe set up some business logic, right? We could set up those business rules around bringing up the encoding servers. Let's say if my queue wait time exceeds 5 minutes, or if I exceed X number of files in the queue, or maybe even around peak periods. So if I know that I've got set times of the day where I'm going to have a heavy volume of files, I want to start bringing those servers up. That's all feasible and part of the solutions pack, correct?
That's absolutely correct. It's all configurable through the solutions pack, and our friends at RightScale are helping us make those business rules happen. That kind of concludes the demo. I'm going to just let it kind of run here in the background. And again, what you need to know here is this is all live, 100%. We prayed to the demo gods before the demo here. We wouldn't have any connectivity issues or anything. And so this is actually going from ingest up through encode and being delivered.
And then, Mike, in terms of the encoding part, I'm sure people have questions about, okay, so what do we do if I need to get a new encoding profile configured in here? how do we support that in terms of profiles and supporting those new devices that are in the marketplace?
Yeah, that's a great question. With Squeeze, we have this concept of presets, right? They're basically your encoding recipes. And over the years, people have built up their favorite encoding recipes, and they treat them like their own children, if you will. I mean, they're very near and dear to people. And that's one of the advantages we have with Squeeze Server here in the mix, is that we are able to take advantage of those presets that people have built up with Squeeze. So you can actually use the default presets that are in there, but you can upload your own as well. And additionally, we have this thing called preset exchange. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, it comes back to, like you said, if people are already familiar with our desktop product and they've been creating those encoding recipes, we've made it easy to export those, import them into the solutions pack, and that way they can take advantage of those encoding recipes. But I guess I really want to stress that even if they're not familiar, the good news is you don't have to worry about it. I feel like we've really eliminated the hard work and complexities because we have preset exchange and we have experts, and this is really where, again, our focus has been over the last 15 years is helping define what those encoding recipes need to look like. So we take all the guesswork out of it. So, we're setting method of encoding, frame size, bit rate for given devices, and make it pretty simple to just import those into the Squeeze Solutions Pack. So all those servers that are coming online, have all those recipes ready to go to support the encoding and transcoding needs for a given project.
That's correct, and it's actually a good segue, and I just wanted to briefly show one of the iPhone reference applications that we have here. And again, this source code is available with Solutions Pack. It's kind of built a little bit around delivering to our Sorenson 360 platform, but again, you have the source code to do with it what you would like. So I'm going to go ahead and click in here, and this is actually going to show me the 360 videos that are on my account. That's not really what we're here to talk about. What I want to jump to is this local tab. I'm running in the simulator, so it's not like I have my phone with me that has all my videos, but I have a few videos, or a couple videos in the simulator here. So this would be a video on my phone. I click on it, and I can actually drill down. I can change some metadata. And again, metadata flows through the system. And you notice we have a destination of Squeeze Server here. Getting back to the presets that Kurt was talking about, what happened here is I've gone out and queried Squeeze Server to say what presets are available to me. I can then choose one of those presets, or select them from the preset exchange, or add a new preset, all from my mobile phone. If I were to select one here, it would come back, and then I would be able to then go ahead and upload. One other thing to mention here, as these jobs are being chunked away at, you'll see these servers. I'll leave this console up, and you might see these servers, kind of coming and going as they're needed. In this case, we've got a bunch of jobs that I'm not adding anymore. So as the queue goes down and as the servers are no longer needed, you'll see them dropping out of the Solutions Pack and effectively being shut down, so you're not having to pay for a capacity you don't need.
Great, fantastic. Well, I think that people get a good sense of what we can do and the scalability of the Solutions Pack, and obviously the ability to support all the encoding profiles. I guess one thing we didn't touch on are things like, everyone's talking about adaptive bit rate, and how do we support that and leverage that? Where do the dynamic scaling of servers come into play there?
Yeah, we're doing some big jobs for some customers right now, and of course, adaptive is a big issue here. And so, producing adaptive streams, if you will, those of you familiar with it, requires a lot of horsepower and requires a lot of files to be created and that kind of thing. So to the extent that we can add more servers to the mix to create, to make that process faster, Solutions Pack allows you to do that.
Great, excellent. All right, well maybe we can bring up, I know we've gone through, we've still got a few jobs in the queue, but why don't we go ahead and just jump to the next slide that we have. Okay? Being mindful of time here as well. Sure. So that really takes us to the summary and conclusion. And hopefully everyone fully appreciates this, that, really what we're dealing with today, and as it relates to defining a strategy and how you're going to support encoding in the cloud, there's more devices. which means more renditions, more delivery options, obviously more formats, and this requires a lot of decisions around when you're thinking about encoding, what do you need to be able to support from a device standpoint, from an environment? And of course, that translates into the fact that, encoding, it's accelerating, it's not declining, and there's a lot of variable conditions, which does require some forethought because, one size did not fit all. This goes back to that user experience. People just want it to work. They want it to work across all their devices. They want it to look great, and they don't want, they want a great playback experience. And what we can do in terms of encoding in the cloud is really provide that on-demand set of services that are scalable, that can adapt quickly to support the new devices and formats. That's the future-proofing. And really eliminate the need to invest in all of that hardware, software, and the resources, to support this evolving, growing, spiky nature of encoding. So that concludes the demonstration in the slide deck that we have. I know we've got some time here for questions and answers. So I guess I'd like to turn it back over and to the RightScale team, and let's begin by taking some questions.
Thank you, Kirk. This is Yuri speaking. I'm going to grab the first question, and then I'm going to pass it back to Sorenson. So you guys please look through the questions as they're coming in so you can be ready to pick some and answer them as they're coming in. So I have a question here, and I think it'll help bring some clarity throughout. The question is, what does RightScale provide? But I'm going to broaden it to, what does each company provide? And let me speak to that for a moment. What we've done is we've actually combined best-of-class technologies in different categories to together make available what we're calling the Squeeze Solution Pack, which means that it's a pre-built encoding environment that you can deploy in the cloud, as opposed to a company out there having to find all these pieces independently, do a lot of systems integration work, and get it to operate properly on their own. Because Aspera, Sorenson, and RightScale have combined the one acceleration that Aspera brings to the table, the superior video encoding and transcoding capabilities that Sorenson provides, and the RightScale Cloud Management Platform to build this capability that's highly automated, that you can bring up in moments. In the demo, you didn't show the environment being built from scratch, but quite literally, when you buy this Squeeze Solution Pack from us, we actually talk to you about your exact needs so we can customize it with the specifics that you're looking for, but we actually help you stand up the environment. It's something that you can do quite quickly, surprisingly so, and then from there, it actually can set it up with your business rules and your business logic so you can auto-scale and add and decrease the number of servers as you need them. So that's actually what you saw in the demo, and that's what you get when you purchase what we're describing here today. So with that, let me pass the next question back to Sorenson.
So we've got lots and lots of questions come in, and everyone, these are great questions. So we'll try and get to as many as we can, and we'll stay on past the hour. If anyone's interested, we'll keep answering questions as long as we can. So the first question, how customizable is the software used for cloud encoding? Mike, do you want to?
Well, I think we touched a little bit on that, but like I said, we have a rich set of APIs around Squeeze Server and Solutions Pack, so you have full access, to control the queues, to monitor the queues, to control servers, to start them, to stop them. You can do all that manually, but in addition, you can set up those business rules to define, when you want, encoding, power, or how you want it to be applied.
Okay, so the next question, we have a wide variety of content that spans all possible aspect ratios and image qualities. How can you customize? Let's see. How do you customize encodes within the solution?
Well, this comes back to we were talking about part of what we provide at Sorenson Media is really 15 plus years of best practices around creating those encoding recipes, and so we can bring a lot of expertise to bear in terms of working with you to define the exact encoding profiles that you need. But as we were talking earlier, there's a really complete set of presets that are readily available. They're online in the preset exchange. It's easy to go through and look by device or format that you want. Simply import those in. But it's not a canned preset. You know, we have a lot of our users that, quite frankly, they just use what they're provided. But for those that want to get in underneath the hood and do a little bit more fine-tuning via the knobs, you know, we do get full control via those presets to really adjust all the different parameters to support, you know, exactly what you're trying to accomplish in terms of delivery of that content to a given device or environment.
Great, thanks. So next question, is this more for streaming data, or can the cloud be used to compute data for video production?
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure I fully understand the question, but you know, this is all about encoding and transcoding of content. So I guess the way I look at this is really regardless of sort of the use case, if you have a need to take a given file format and either compress it or transcode it into a lot of different flavors of video, we do all of that. And I also want to touch on one other thing. It's not just the encoding, transcoding. It's also, you know, a big part of what we do in Squeeze, the Squeeze engine, the Squeeze server, is really around pre-processing, and that can't be taken for granted. When you start looking at how you get high quality in a relatively, you know, small bit rate, a lot is tied to how you're pre-processing that content. And so we do provide a full range of filters that can really make a huge difference when it comes to what the end result looks like.
Great. One last thing before we turn it back to RightScale. Can we talk a little bit about the an off-premise cloud computing solution?
Absolutely, and I touched on this in terms of the types of deployments. You know, we're seeing a lot of different implementations. So we certainly provide a Squeeze server both in the cloud and on-premise, and that could be leveraged in a hybrid model. And again, it's great having a partnership with RightScale because they do make that very, very turnkey and automated. So if you've got existing hardware and you want to take advantage of that, which is completely understandable, you could have Squeeze server running on existing servers, but then as capacity is you're reaching the max capacity, you can seamlessly hand the additional work that you need to be performed into the cloud via Squeeze server. And you have a combination of both. It doesn't have to be cloud only. It could be both on-premise in the cloud, and it's even taking advantage of the private cloud solutions that are out there in the marketplace today.
Great. Yuri, do you want to field a few questions?
Yes, I got a question here. Do you have, actually, do you have to have separate accounts at Sorenson, Aspera, RightScale, and Amazon, or is it all combined in a single bill? Do you buy capacity in advance or after setup on per gigabyte? So in the last questions I was explaining what do you get. We've actually combined our technology so that for the point of view of the person in company buying it, it's a single solution. And we, by the way, we stand behind that as a single solution. You don't have to do a bunch of systems integration yourself. That extends all the way through to the buying. You don't have to go and acquire and sign different contracts and follow all these different procedures. Because RightScale is the managed platform, you actually buy the Squeeze solution pack from RightScale, but you're getting all the technology that you're seeing today. So there's no necessity to go and acquire things for the different companies. However, we manage the service in the cloud, but RightScale doesn't provide service themselves. That actually brings a lot of flexibility to you. Part of the question said, do you have to open an account with Amazon? So the answer to that is yes. But that also means that you can choose to run this in a separate infrastructure as a service provider or in your own data center. It depends very specifically on the details and what you want to do and the technologies involved, but that's one of the big benefits of the way that it's architected, and part of that is the way that the RightScale technology works. So there's all sorts of flexibility there, and the best way to really address this is for the people that want to know more is to just engage us directly with the email address that you see on your screen, and then we can actually answer your specific question about what you're looking for. Now I would like to pass the next question to Aspera. I believe we have Babik ready with a question.
Okay, so one of the questions we have is how large can the uploaded master video files be? So Aspera is actually capable of sending any file size, and so the way Aspera works allows you basically to take your WAN bandwidth and your upload capability, and we can, if your business rules necessitate, basically use all of that bandwidth to move your content. The file sizes can be unlimited in terms of what we can send, so your time to send data is simply your file size divided by how much bandwidth you may have available for moving. So that would answer one question. The next question we have is, how is Aspera integrated into the Squeeze server architecture? And so Mike can probably provide better context, but from the purposes of the end user, it's all an integrated system. There are different components. Aspera actually runs as a separate instance, but the way that it's fully connected with the Sorenson infrastructure and the way RightScale is managing is almost transparent to the user, such that you don't really have to be concerned about the way the different components are interacting unless you really want to. But it is a separate server, independent of the Squeeze servers, but all of the data is managed in a transparent fashion such that you have really no concept of it being different pieces. And I don't know, Mike, if you have anything to add with respect to that.
No, I don't. I think you explained it perfectly, Bhavik.
So back to you, Yuri.
Actually, I think there's a lot of Sorenson questions, so I'd like to pass it back to Sorenson.
Sure. So here's a question coming in. What are the main differences of this approach compared with services like Encoding.com?
Encoding.who? Are they a new kid on the block? Or, oh, well, I just want to ask you. So I'll tell you what. You know, we've been doing this for a very long time. We've been in this business we have a lot of experience. We kind of, pioneered some of the, web video, in the beginning. So, I think one of the things that you need to look at is, is the history, the capabilities. I mean, Encoding.com certainly has done a good job, and, we are, we're kind of this, like it's been mentioned, this Switzerland, but, our solution actually gives you full control. In other words, with Squeeze Solution Pack, what you can bring your own AWS account. That's the preferred method. You bring your own Amazon account. You have full control over your environment. You have full control over your deployment, should you choose to. But it's very, very simple to manage.
The other part of this is just to really add on to what you said. It's the engine. It's our IP around 15 years of creating this compression technology, and it's really been award-winning in the desktop product. It's the same engine we use in the server solution. And so this is a dedicated environment, as Mike said, but it's all of the hard work and complexity of supporting those different codecs, and we fully licensed from a number of different codec companies and the pre-processing, just all the pieces that come together. That is core and central to the solution pack is the high quality encoding that we can provide, and that's just tied to the pre-processing best-in-class codecs, and the fact that we have tremendous expertise around this and are not using off-the-shelf open source tools. And I'm sure we're a little bit biased here, but it's been proven out time and time again. When it comes to the hard encoding jobs, we're often what is used when all others tend to fail. We take a lot of pride in that.
Yeah, and I think Kirk explained it well. We actually have that Squeeze engine that Squeeze server was actually built on top of. Like I said, we put a lot of effort into making it a real server-side solution. But there's all that expertise that we've developed over the years that we've factored in here. And again, the ability to share those presets, that your favorite presets between Squeeze and Squeeze server is really important as well.
Thanks. So next question, can the hybrid solution include different vendors? In other words, vendor A on-site and then Sorenson in the cloud?
Absolutely. Again, we are very API-driven with things that we do. So there's nothing in our architecture with Squeeze Solution Pack preventing us from having kind of a combination of private cloud and public cloud in the mix.
Everyone, this is Yuri speaking. It's now 12 o'clock in my time zone in the west coast of the United States, so I'd like to make the announcement that this is the time we had originally allotted for the webinar. However, as we look at the list of attendees, we still have hundreds, and as the questions continue to come in, we're happy to stick around and keep answering questions. So I just want to let everybody know that made up time in their calendar. Thank you, but nevertheless, we'll continue and we'll keep answering questions. And for Sorenson, if you don't mind, I'd like to take a RightScale question right now, and then I'll pass it right back to you after that. And the question is, how is Aspera integrated into the Squeeze server, or is there an Aspera separate instance? It sounds like an Aspera question in this, but actually I want to turn it into a RightScale question and a question about the environment overall. This is more on the technical side in the server infrastructure area, but I think it might be useful for people to get a more context into what they're getting. When somebody buys the Squeeze solution pack, they get a deployment, a group of servers that are built and architected to deliver the results and the technology that you saw Mike demonstrating. So you actually get an Aspera server, a Squeeze server, and a pair of databases, a master-slave database, because that's where all your key information is stored, and the ability to auto-scale or scale horizontally or scale out, as sometimes people also call it, the Squeeze servers based on load. So it's actually a group of servers that you have that are already set out of the box for you to work together between RightScale, Aspera, and Sorenson's Squeeze server, that you have all the licensing built in, and it's all ready to go out of the box. Nevertheless, they're your machines, so we've been talking about running this on Amazon EC2 during the demonstration, so they're your servers and Amazon's EC2. You got root access to your machines. You can change and modify and tweak them in any way you want, so you get the benefits of the automation and the pre-built aspect of the solution that we created together, but nevertheless you have complete control to change and tweak and modify and customize as you might need. So with that, I would like to pass it back to Sorenson.
Great. Here's a question. They say we're looking at the Squeeze server right now. This cloud architecture is very interesting. Is there a way to test drive this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's really a couple of ways to get started. Certainly what you have up on the screen here is if you do have a project, you're ready to get started, and you want to take a closer look at the Squeeze solution pack, we obviously would love to talk to you. So you can contact RightScale. The sales information there, their email and phone number. You can also contact Sorenson Media. And we're happy to talk to you more and set up basically a sandbox environment where you do some testing. If you're looking just simply at the encoding engine and you want to test drive that, we make that really straightforward and simple. We do have the developer website, which is public, which is developer.sorensonmedia.com. That would give you access to the Squeeze server APIs and give you really an easy, convenient way to take a look at our encoding technology. But again, as it relates to the Squeeze Solutions Pack, you can simply contact us. We'd like to talk to you more about your project, and certainly happy to set up a sandbox environment for you to evaluate.
Okay, does the client need to have any particular software in place to receive the encodes from the cloud?
So I assume this is a delivery question relating to once we're done encoding in the cloud, how do we deliver? And we can deliver via a variety of mechanisms. If you remember on the architecture slide, we had FTP there. We can push it to via HTTP. We can push it to Amazon S3 directly. So we have a variety of options there to deliver to. So basically, any URI that is accessible and we know how to authenticate to, we can deliver to.
And just to add on that, obviously, it's a one-to-many. It isn't a situation where you can only publish to one destination. Maybe that's stating the obvious, but I think it's worth stressing that what we've been seeing more and more is sort of this multi-CDN environment where you may be leveraging multiple CDNs, one's a primary, one's secondary. We support that, and so if you need to send content to, let's say, Akamai and Limelight concurrently, while also pushing content off to an FTP location for archiving, all that's feasible within our Squeeze solution pack and the APIs that we provide.
And one more question before we pass it back. Can you set the encoding profile to encode to any given number of formats at once?
Absolutely. I mean, these recipes don't have to be limited to, I get a source file in and I give it one given output format. And that's actually a really common use case that we see because just like we talked early on, you've got all these different devices, and unfortunately, there's not just one video standard. So let's say you need to do both WebM and H.264. Maybe you need to do, VC1. Maybe you need to do whatever. All of that is feasible. You just create the multiple encoding recipes. So when you get the content in, you're transcoding to all the given output formats at all the different renditions, and then delivering wherever you need to ultimately deliver those files to.
Yeah, those of you familiar with Squeeze know how this works. It works basically the same way in Squeeze Server. So those presets can contain any number of destinations.
Okay, so another question came in. Sorry about that. What did the integration between Aspera and RightScale involve? And Pavlik would like you to address that. Okay.
So it's not so much the direct integration between Aspera and RightScale as it is, the solution as a whole. So RightScale has APIs. Aspera has APIs to integrate with it, and of course, Squeeze Server has APIs. So we're kind of tying them together via a combination of APIs and known kind of file system locations, if you will. But they're not shared. So I don't want anybody to think that your environment is going to get mixed up with anyone else's. Everything is private here for each customer, and so you don't have to worry about your files being compromised at all. In addition, with those solution pack APIs, we provide you access to kind of tweak that integration as you see fit. A variety of parameters, and like we've talked about, including things like when to bring servers up and down. So it wasn't, like I said, so much a direct RightScale to Aspera integration as it is kind of Squeeze Server in the middle, kind of brokering between everything. And yes, Aspera servers can dynamically come up and down as needed as well. But as you can imagine, all of the power really needed for an encoding solution is on the encodes themselves. So the CPU is going to be very busy doing the encodes. Handling uploads, not so much, right? Not as much. So we don't need to scale the Aspera servers because, and this is a testament to how good Aspera is, we don't need to scale the physical Aspera servers as much as we do the encoding servers based on that CPU utilization.
Great, Bobak. There's a question coming in for you. Are there options for someone wanting to do this kind of work but with limited ISP bandwidth, like in India? What is the minimum bandwidth required?
Okay, so that's a great question. So to answer the bandwidth requirement first, I mean the amount of bandwidth you have really will determine how fast you can send data to the encoding cloud and retrieve your results. So the larger your file, the less bandwidth you have, just the longer it will take. Specifically, if you are in locations where bandwidth is choppy, i.e. you have large distances between you and the Amazon servers, of which it's either Singapore, the US, or Europe at the moment, then distance is your problem. So what Aspera is helping you to do is really ensure the data delivery is successful, that it's secure, that it gets to the Sorenson infrastructure in one piece, i.e. uncorrupted and as a single object, and that you get back that result. So what we're offering you in low bandwidth, high latency, high packet loss environments is the guarantee that your data will be delivered as it is at your local facility to the cloud and returned back again. And that guarantee and the reliable delivery and the security is really what Aspera is able to offer in very challenging network environments. The more bandwidth you have, the more we will allow you to use. But fundamentally, we can't give you more bandwidth than you have available. And often, upload bandwidth speeds are different to download, so it's really going to be very subjective. But the overall goal is we're going to let you move your files to where they need to go and get them back again, which hopefully is going to provide a tremendous value above, FTP and HTTP issues that are often quite common in these type of environments.
All right, I know we're way past the hour. We've got a lot of technical questions coming in, and I'm sure we'll address these with you individually as after the webinar. We don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of this, but we've got a couple more questions that we'd like to get answered here, and I'll kick off a couple. So what happens, this is a question, what happens with our video data once the files have been encoded? This is someone coming from someone who generates a lot of video.
So once they come in and get into the system, then they get delivered somewhere. So we deliver them, via whatever mechanism you've asked us to, and then they're deleted. So we have no archiving mechanism. as part of Solutions Pack per se. That doesn't mean that you can't put some workflow, in between to archive them once they are delivered to you. But we don't retain those source files at all.
Can you encode to all video formats? Example, all sizes of SLV, MP4, etc.
Yeah, we do encode to a wide variety of formats. When you say all formats, as new formats come out, of course we're very quick to adopt those and to support them, as evidenced by WebM. Again, May 19th is very much engraved in my mind because that was Google I/O's launch of WebM, and we were there with support immediately. And again, those of you familiar with Squeeze know that you can tweak the presets, the codecs, the bit rates, and everything to make it so things will play back on a variety of on just about any device. For example, right now in my office, I've probably got 15 Android phones and tablets, and we have video coming out of Squeeze and Squeeze Server that play back on every one of those devices.
Great. RightScale?
So with that, we would like to bring the webinar to a close. Thank you for everybody that attended, especially those of you that stayed late and are hearing this now. I would also like to remind everyone that this is actually recorded and will be available probably by tomorrow in our website, rightscale.com/webinars, plural, with an S at the end. For the people that submitted questions, especially very specific ones, we will reach out to you directly via email or phone or both. We are very, very happy to engage and discuss your needs and help you figure out if what we have here is something that can address that. So thank you very much, and I look forward to speaking to some of you in person myself. Thanks.